So sometimes when I'm talking with people, I'll tell them that I'm a pastor and that I work for the Raven Foundation, where we seek to make religion reasonable, violence unthinkable, and peace a possibility. And sometimes when I'm talking with my evangelical friends, they'll say things like, "Yes, that's great. Isn't the Bible awesome? You should get yourself into the Word of God, and it's life-changing, and isn't the Bible great because it's the Word of God?" Now, I love the Bible, but I never know how to respond to these kinds of people because I disagree. So there's this awkward silence between us, kind of like this. Again, I love the Bible. It has authority in my life. I read it all the time, but I don't think that it's the Word of God, and I don't think it's the Word of God for a few reasons. First of all, the Bible never actually calls itself the Word of God. You would think that if the Bible was the Word of God, it would say, "Hi, I'm the Word of God," but it never in the Bible do you see a passage where it says, "And the Bible and the Word of God became the Bible." You never see that. It comes close in 2 Timothy, where Paul's writing a letter to this dude named Timothy, and he's like, hey, the scriptures, by what he means here is the Hebrew scriptures, are God-inspired. They're God-breathed, and they're good for teaching. And yes, of course, the Bible is God-inspired, but that doesn't mean that it is the Word of God. The Bible is God-inspired because it's written by people who are seeing how God is working in their lives, and they're trying to understand how God is working in their lives. And so they're writing about it, and they're arguing about it back and forth. And this is what it means for the Bible to be a book. It's not the Word of God. It's written by human beings who are arguing about what God is doing in their lives. So that's one reason. The second reason is that even though the Bible never calls itself the Word of God, the Bible does call something the Word of God, and that is Jesus. In the beginning was the Word, begins got the Gospel of John. The Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became a book. No, it says the Word became flesh. It's talking about Jesus here, and walked among us. The Word of God is Jesus. So the other reason that I have problems talking about the Bible as the Word of God is that Jesus didn't believe that the Bible was the Word of God. He didn't treat the Bible as if it was the Word of God. He didn't treat the Bible as if every verse was just as important as every other verse. In fact, Jesus challenged verses in the Bible. There are verses in the Bible that says things like, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. You get this in Leviticus, Exodus, and Deuteronomy. In fact, I'll quote for you Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 21. It says, show no pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, arm for arm, and foot for foot. This is a strand that you see throughout the Bible, and Jesus challenges it by picking a different strand, and that's the prophetic strand. Hosea 6:6 that says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Show no pity, show mercy. Jesus says, show mercy. He says this in Matthew chapter 5 in the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus says, you have heard it said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I say unto you, do not resist an evildoer, forgive your enemies, love those who persecute you, love your enemies. This is what Jesus is trying to get at. He even does this when he's on the cross, when James Allison says that Jesus is the forgiving victim. This is what it means for God to be God. The Word of God made flesh forgives his enemies and shows mercy and pity to those who inflict violence upon him. This is what Jesus does, and Jesus invites us to live into that forgiveness, love, and mercy, and the early Christians knew this. So this is where mimetic theory comes in. Jesus transforms everything, and this is where Paul gets this in Romans chapter 12. Paul says, show mercy, show love. If you see your enemy and your enemy is thirsty, give your enemy something to drink. If your enemy is hungry, give your enemy something to eat. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. This is what the Word of God does to us. This is what Jesus does to us, changes everything so that we overcome evil, not by evil, a better evil or more inspired evil, but you overcome evil with good, with love, with forgiveness, with mercy, with pity. So Paul takes this prophetic mercy, not sacrifice strand that Jesus takes and highlights that over and against other verses of the Bible. So that is why I am very uncomfortable with calling the Bible the Word of God, because Jesus is the Word of God. Love your enemies. That's what it's all about. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks.